Differences between var, let, and const. Use const by default for variables that will not be reassigned. Use let when you need to reassign a variable. Avoid using var in most cases due to its function, scope, nature, and potential issues with hoisting. Var was the original keyword for declaring variables in JavaScript before ECMAScript 6. Variables declared with var are accessible regardless of the block scope. If a variable is declared with var outside any function, it becomes a global variable accessible through the entire script. Var variables can be redeclared and updated with their scope without any restrictions. Variables declared with var are hoisted to the top of their scope during the compilation phase. Example of var variables and scope could be found below. Variables declared with let are limited in scope to the block, means any code surrounded by curly braces, unlike var. Let does not allow redeclaration of the same variable within the same scope. Let variables can be updated, but they cannot be accessed for their declaration. No hoisting in this case. Example of let variable and scope could be found below. Const is used to declare variables that have a constant unchangeable value. Like let, const is blocked scope and it cannot be redeclared within the same scope. Additionally, const variables cannot be reassigned after declaration, making them immutable. Objects and arrays declared with const can be modified through their properties. Example of const variables and scope could be found below. Okay, so here we have var x equal to 10, and we want to run a block scope if statement, which is true, and in the scope we have var x that's equal to 20. In that case, console logout will be 20, and if you want to console logout after if statement, it's going to be the same thing. Clear it out. Let's save our code, and it's console logout the same values as here. In case if it's let variables, then this will be 20, but this one will be 10 because reassigning let x happening inside the block statement if. Here we have the first one 20 and the last one is 10. Let's try const next, and this is going to be the same as let. Save it one more time. Yep, exactly. Describe the concept of data types in JavaScript and provide examples of each. Data types refer to the classification or categorization of data in computer programming, used to categorize the different types of values that can be stored in variables and help JavaScript engine understand how to handle the data. Understanding data types is crucial for writing effective and bug-free JavaScript code. There are two main categories of data types, primitive and reference. Primitive data types are immutable and directly hold the actual value. There are 6 primitive data types in JavaScript. Number represents numeric values, including integers and floating point numbers. String represents a sequence of characters enclosed in single or double quotes. Boolean represents a logical value, true or false. Null represents intentional absence of any value. Undefined represents a declared variable with no assigned value. Symbol, introduced in ECMAScript 6, represents a unique and immutable value often used as object property key. Reference data types are objects that are stored in memory and accessed by reference to the memory address. They can hold a collection of values and have properties and methods. Object represents a collection of key-value pairs or properties and methods. Array represents an ordered list of elements accessed by index. And date represents a specific moment in time. Function represents a usable block of code that can be called with arguments. Regex represents a regular expression pattern for string matching. What is the difference between null and undefined? Undefined is used when a variable is not initialized or not given any value, while null is used when it is required to empty a variable or set an object. Unlike undefined, which is typically the default initial value for variables, null must be explicitly assigned. Undefined represents a variable that has been declared but has not been assigned a value. It means that the variable exists in the current scope, but it lacks a defined value. If you try to access the value of an uninitialized variable, it will yield undefined. It is important to know the difference between a variable that is not yet defined and one that has been defined but set to the undefined value. Null represents the intentional absence of any value. It is an assignment value that a developer can use to indicate that a variable or object doesn't have any meaningful value or doesn't point to any memory address. Alright, let's say we have a variable that's not defined. In that case, if we console log out it into the console, browser will show undefined. Let's save it and see if it works. Okay, we see returning undefined. And if we set variable to null, it's going to obviously return null. Let's save it. Yeah, it is null. How to create and use functions in JavaScript. Functions in JavaScript are blocks of reusable code that can be defined once and called multiple times from different parts of the script. Functions declarations is the most common way to define a function in JavaScript. Function declaration usage example can be found below. A way to define a function is an expression, typically by assigning it to a variable. Naming function expression below. Function expression can be anonymous, and this is anonymous function expression. Function expressions are not hoisted, so you have to define them before you can use them. Example of function expression that will throw an error. And this is one is a function declaration that will work with hoisting. In practice, the choice between function declaration and function expression often comes down to style and specific use cases. Both are widely used in JavaScript programming. Arrow function introduced in ECMAScript 6 provides a shorter syntax for writing function expressions. Alright, let's say we have a function. Greet, and we have a name as a parameters. We have to greet someone, and let's call this function. This is a function declaration. Let's run the code. Okay, now we have hello job. Let's call it as an expression. And let's call it one more time. Okay, we still have John. Let's switch it to the William. Okay, let's run it. Hello William. What else do we have? Function expression can be anonymous. We can delete name. Enjoy. Let's run it. Enjoy. Other than that, we also can have hoisting. For example, like this, it's not gonna work because we call it we create a function as expression, right? Let's see. Yeah, it's giving an error. Can access waiting before initialization. But if we declare function instead of make it as an expression, it's gonna work. Yep, see? Let's do it one more time. And hello Joel. That's happening because this is a function declaration and earlier it was function expression. What else do we have? We can declare function as an arrow function. Hello Joel. Okay, it works. What is return statement in JavaScript? The return statement is a fundamental concept in many programming languages, and it serves for value return and early exit. Value return allows a function to send a value back to the place from which the function was called. This returned value can then be used for further operations or stored in a variable. Example is below. Early exit is a return statement that can also be used to exit from a function before the rest of its code is executed. How to loop through an array in JavaScript. For loops. This is a basic method where you iterate through the array based on its length. For loop. This is an ECMAScript 6 feature and provides a simpler way to loop through array values directly. For each method, arrays in JavaScript have a built-in for each method that accepts a function. This function is expected for each element in the array. For each arrow function, looks like an example below. With ECMA6 arrow function for each method can be more concise. For in loop, primarily used for looping through the properties of an object. Alright, let's loop by using for loop. In terminal, as you can see, each element of the array here, that is where we can use for loop with off, which means for off loop. Let's run it here. Then we have for each method. Here we have index, but we don't need it right now. Let's look through for each item. This could be value or anything else. Let's clear the terminal and try it again. Okay, everything works. Now we want to concise the same method for each, which going to look the same, but without curlies. Okay, let's try it. Yep, it works. And we can use for in loop also. Okay, let's try it. Here we don't have values from array, we have their indices. Objects in JavaScript. An object in JavaScript is a collection of key-value pairs where the keys, often called properties or attributes, can be string and the value can be any valid JavaScript value, including functions, which are then typically called methods. Example of a simple JavaScript object is below. Example of an accessing object by a dot notation. And here is an example of an accessing object by a bracket notation. Objects are core components and are fundamental for understanding the language. They allow us to organize data and functions in a meaningful and structured way. Some additional points. First, objects can be nested. That means an object can contain other objects as properties. Second point, if you try to access property that doesn't exist, JavaScript will return undefined. Third point, this keyword, when used inside an object method, refers to the current object itself. Alright, let's build an object. Pretty much straightforward and simple. And then we're gonna access it through the dot notation. Let's try it. Oh, I'm gonna do it. Okay, let's try one of them. Okay, we see we did access here first name and age, which is John and 30. And we can also access the method inside this object. And we can access it by calling this method. Let's try it. Okay, hello John, hello John. Let's clear it for now. We have bracket notations that could be accessed to object by using brackets. Let's comment this out and save it, and let's run it. Okay. Methods to manipulate arrays in JavaScript. JavaScript provides a wide range of methods to manipulate arrays. There are adding, removing elements methods, which is push method, add one or more elements to the end of an array and returns the new length. And pop method removes the last element of an array and returns that element. Shift removes the first element from an array and returns that element. Unshift adds one or more elements to the beginning of an array and returns the new length. And finally, splice method changes the content of an array by removing, replacing, or adding elements. Iterating over elements methods such as for each executes and provides function once per array element. Map array creates a new array with the result of calling a provided function on every element. Filter method creates a new array with all elements that pass the test implemented by the provided function. Sum method tests whether at least one element in the array passes the test implemented by function. And finally, every method tests whether all elements in the array pass the test implemented by the provided function. Searching and location methods, such as index of, returns the first index at which a given element can be found, or returns -1 if not found. Next is last index of, returns the last index at which a given element can be found, or -1 if not found. Find method returns the found element in the array if an element in the array satisfies the provided testing function, or identified if not found. Find index method returns the index of the first element in the array that satisfies the provided testing function, otherwise it returns -1. Transformation. Concat method, which stands for concatenation, merges two or more arrays. Join method joins all elements of an array into a string. Slice method returns a shallow copy of a portion of an array into a new array. Reverse method reverses the elements of an array in place. And let method creates a new array with all sub-arrays elements concatenated up to the specified depth. Let map function maps each element using a mapping function, then flattens the result into a new array. Reduction. Reduction method applies a function against an accumulator and each element in the array from left to right to reduce it to a single value. Reduce right is a method that applies a function against an accumulator and each element in the array from right to left to reduce it to a single value. Others methods such as sort the elements of an array in place and returns the sorted array. Fill method fills all the elements of an array from a start index to an end index with a static value. Next is a includes method, determines whether an array includes a certain element, returns true or false as appropriate. To locale string method returns a string representing the elements of the array. To string method returns a string representing the specified array and its elements. And finally, isArray method determines whether the passed values is an array. Okay, let's say we have a for each array and we want to add one more value. To the end we're gonna use push, and then we're gonna add banana, and then we're going to console log out for each weight. Okay, we can see that this is apple, orange, and banana. Let's say we want to pop values, and pop values doesn't require any element inside the function, and the first function will be able, the last one will be orange, which is popped out, so it's going to be removed from the array, and what stays in the array is apples. That's why we're seeing apple in the console. Let's do shift. And shift returns an array of oranges, which is single one. What else we have? Let's unshift. Unshift, and so to say, unshift adds in the beginning of the array some values. Let's save it. Yep, it added grapes, and the whole array will be like this. And also we have slice method. And we want to add let's say we have array with grapes from the beginning, and we want the slice in the middle, and remove apple and add instead of it kiwi. So it's going to be functions method slice. And let's see what's happened next. Interesting. Okay, that's because it's splice, not slice. And okay, to remove element in the middle, we're gonna do like this. But it's returning only grapes and kiwi, not even oranges. Let's try this way. Okay, so we added kiwi in the middle. Okay, that's fine. What else? We have also numbers array, and we want to do some operations with numbers. For example, for each num, and we're going to console log all these nums with operation like num by num, num by num. So what it's going to do is take num in the beginning and it adds the same value. Same goes for the next value and for the next value, so it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, right? Okay, yep, that works. Also, we have numbers with method, and we're gonna do the other operation, but it's pretty much similar. We're gonna take the first value from array and we're gonna multiply on first value. It's gonna be equal to 1, because 1 by 1 will be 1, 2 by 2 will be 4, 3 by 3 will be 9, and so on and so on. Let's check it out here. Okay, yeah, that works fine. What else method? We have filter method, and we're going to use module here. Module of 2 that equals 0 will return all even numbers like 2 or 4. Let's check it out. Oh, it's returning, it's returning booleans. So 2 is an even number, so we're returning true. 4 is even number, we're returning 4. And let's return odd numbers. Okay, here we go. 1, which is first element in our array, is an odd number, which is true. Then 2 is a false because it's an even number, not odd number. Then 3, and so on and so on. Okay, let's move to the next method, like index of, and we have colors in the array. And if colors index of, say blue, so blue, it should be 1 because it's what is it? It's true. Let's console log it out. Console log, and then we're gonna try it. Okay, it's 1. Let's try red. 0, and last element in the array by number 2, because we have in array we have positions like 0, 1, and 2. And what index of do is reading those indexes. So say we have red, it's index 0, blue is index 1, green is index 2. So we're going to check it in the console log, we're going to save it here, and it's index 2 because green in array is index 2. And we have last index of. Let's remove this line, we don't need it. Let's see it. The same thing, right? And red is index 0, which is 0. Okay, let's try find color find. And syntax here will be color length of 3. It's 3 letters in the elements of the array. Let's see what console gives us. Console gives us output red. Let's actually comment this out so we can see. Okay, what about length of 4? It's gonna be blue. And length of 5 is green. Okay, well, it's gonna have what output will be on index on find length 6 undefined because we don't have such length here. Anyway, let's find index. Find index, and it's the same thing. It will be word. It will be element in the array with length of 3, and it's gonna what its method are gonna do is going to return index. That's why it's called find index, right? So we're going to find index with length of 3, which is red, and index is current index position is 0, red on the 0 position, right? Let's find some words with length of 4. It will be blue, and position will be index position will be 1. Yep, that's true. And finally 5. Okay, it works as expected. Now, what else we can try here? We do have concatenation next. Let's say we have 2 arrays and we want to merge them. Let's merge, and we're going to take first and then merge it with second, and then we're going to console log out them. Let's log out merge. Let's save it. Interesting. Let's try it this way. Because we're not using proper function here. Okay, so it's gonna be a concatenation cut, right? So we have 2 arrays here, and here we see 1 array, and it holds all values of the previous 2 arrays. And it works totally fine. Sorry for messing around. Let's say we have another array, 1, 2, 3, and we want to use join. And join, what join do is it returns a string, but string we're going to put something between those values in the array, and it's going to look like this. And let's console log out them, and let's see what happens. Okay, let's save it, and we have 1, 2, 3. Let's put a dot, and we see dots. Let's put okay, it's placed characters between numbers, which just works fine. Let's go to the next example, which is slice, and we have array of fruits. It's the second array that we have for today, and we're going to use fruit slice. Not slice, it's a different slice 1 and 3, and it's going to remove one element between 1 and 3. So 3 is banana, apple is 1. It's going to remove oranges, or my apologies. It's going to start from index 1, from position 1, which is somewhere here, I suppose, and index 3 is just here. Okay, let's anyway console log it out and check it out. Okay, and here we go, we have oranges and banana. So we removed one element from the beginning. Totally fine. Let's move to another example, which is reverse. And we're going to reverse our fruits. And let's save it. Okay, so in this array we have apple, oranges, and banana originally, and now we have banana, oranges, apple, which is reversed values array. Okay, and guess what? We have nums array, and we have nums reduce. We have reduce method. Let's reduce nums array. What it does is just reducing to a single value is going to be like one number, which is going to be 15, because all this value, if you add them one by one to each other, like it's in a function starting from 0, is going to return 15. Let's save it, and let's log it out. Console log sum. Okay, it's 15, right? We're seeing this in the console. And what else do we have here? Let's reduce numbers with another function, reduce right. And output should be 120, because we're going to multiply one by one each value. Say it was 1, 1 by 2 will be 2, and 2 by 3 will be 6, 6 by 4, what? It's 32, and by 5, whatever. Let's just save it and check it out. 120, right? Cool. Let's say we have items with numbers, with array of numbers, and we want to sort them. Items sort. What we're gonna take as a callback function is A and B, which have some manipulations further like this, and it's sorting by ascending. And if you want to sort by descending, it's gonna be like this. Let's try ascending first, and we want to console log out it. Console log it, and here we go. I'm going to save it, and we see array, sorted array. It starts from 1, and then 2, then 4, then 5, and 8. But the original array was 2, 5, 8, 1, 4. So we got in ascending order our new array. Let's try descending. Okay, we got in console descending order, which is 8, 5, 4, 2, 1. Very useful. Let's say we have an empty array. Let array fill, and we're going to fill it with some values by using a JavaScript function. Let's say we have array of 6, right? It's going to be empty, 6 values, 6 values. Okay, and what we want to do is to use function fill. Let's console log out it, and we're going to take this array. I'm going to use function method fill, and we're going to fill it with, say, ABC. Okay, and we're going to save. Okay, it's not working that way. Let's try one. Okay, because it's array of the numbers, right? And let's try 2. It's going to be array of number 2. Okay, fine. Okay, and what do we have else is array also of vegetables. Wait a second. That didn't work because I forgot to place some quotes. Let's try it again. And here we go. We have array of strings. Okay, good. Okay. And we have array of vegetables, which are strings, and we're going to take veggies, and we're going to find the word which includes, say, broccoli. Okay, broccoli, and we're going to console log this out, and it's going to be, guess what? Undefined, of course. Veggies includes. Let's try it. Let's try it this way. And we're going to look for these brackets. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, it returns true because we have broccoli in our array. What will happen if we're going to try to find banana? It's going to return false. Alright, and one more method for array. Let's check it if it's array. And we're going to check veggies. And we're going to remove this line, of course. And it's going to return something. I guess I need to console log out it also. Log and true. Okay, let's try another array. Array of the numbers. Array of the items. True. What if we're going to put here some object instead? Name. No name. Let's put John. Okay, let's save it. Okay, it doesn't return anything. John is not defined. Let's then put it in the string. What about now? Okay, it fails because it's just an object. It's not an array like veggies. Items just an object. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. Asynchronous operations, callbacks, promises, async awaits. A callback is a function passed as an argument to another function, which will be executed once the main function completes its task. There are cons and pros. It's simple and straightforward for basic operations, but cons can lead to callback hell when multiple nested callbacks are used. Also, error handling can become complex. This is a callback example. Promises represents a value that might be available now, in the future, or never. It has 3 states: pending, initial state, rejected, the operation failed, and fulfilled, completed successfully. More structured and scalable than callbacks, simplifies errors handling with catch statement, allows chaining by then for sequential asynchronous code, still requires then catch chaining, which may become cumbersome for complex sequences. Promises example below. Async awaits provides a way to write asynchronous code that looks and behaves more like synchronous code. It's syntactic sugar on top of promises. Make asynchronous code like and feel more like synchronous code. Simplifies error handling using try catch statement. Reduces the need for then and catch chaining. Also still fundamentally relies on promises. Can only be used inside async functions. Async await example below. Alright, how do we handle async await and callbacks and promises? Let's say we have function getPost and we have console1 and console3. And if we run this code, it's going to be like this, right? That's okay. But we want to also run some code between 1 and 3. It's going to be a code. It's going to be fetch statement pointing to API. It's a API with information about someone. say Star Wars about Luke Skywalker. And while we're running, we want to console print out this data, but we don't want all of them. We just console print out console log number 2. And if we save this code and run this code, you're going to see that the first two numbers, it's 1 and 3. And only after some time, we will get number 2. That is happening because of the cache. Now, to avoid this, it's going to be I think a weight that behaves as a synchronous function. And we're going to console log out our JSON response. And it should happen between 1 and 3. Okay, something goes wrong, definitely. Let's try to put it into the try and catch statement. And let's clear the console. And let's try it. Okay. Let's say it's number 2 here. Let's try it again. See, it's awaiting when response going to be complete with async await. It behaves like a synchronous approach. It's taking time, but it's pretty much useful.
What is the difference between double equals and triple equals in JavaScript? In JavaScript, both double equals and triple equals are used for comparison, but they have different behaviors. Double equals, known as equality or loose equality operator, JavaScript aims to convert the operands to the same type before making the comparison. And triple equals, known as a strict equality operator, it checks both the value and the data type of the operands. It is considered a best practice to use the strict equality operator because it ensures a more predictable comparison behavior. In my experience, I spent some time dealing with undefined values. Normally we want to avoid them. I will show you how. Alright, let's say we have a value 1, which is number, and it's 5, and we have a value 2, which is string, and it's also 5. Now let's console log them and see what is the difference it makes when we are using equality operators. In case of double equals, we will see true. In case of triple equals, we will see fail. Obviously, that is because of string and number are different types. Let's save it and see what console will log out for us. Alright, now let's console log and see what is the difference it makes when we are using equality operators for booleans. In case of double equals, we will see true, and in case of triple equals, we will see fails. Let's save it and see. Alright, and last one is a null and undefined. In case of double equals, it will be true, and triple equals, it will be false. Alright, that is pretty much